This is perfect. As trade rumors continue to escalate around the league, the Pittsburgh Penguins are once again linked to one of the best young star players in the entire league. And this has major implications on everything the Pittsburgh Penguins are planning to do this offseason, heading into a very interesting next few seasons. We're going to break down what this means for the team and who this player is in this episode of Penguins Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 68% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with the Pittsburgh Penguins, go down below, hit that free subscribe button. And of course, this is the place to be for all your daily Pittsburgh Penguins news. But Mark, let's get right into it. I did a video last week about this, that, there were some rumblings, and now things, I think, are starting to intensify, and more insiders, more articles are coming out about it, and more people and fans are talking about Marco Rossi becoming a Pittsburgh Penguin. And I think it makes a ton of sense for this team. And as you can see here from the hockey news, there is a ton of speculation about Marco Rossi's future following the Minnesota Wild's exit from the playoffs. And I don't think he's going to return to the Minnesota Wild. Like, he might not become a Pittsburgh Penguin, but I'm going to get into why he should be. And I actually do believe that he will be. And I think Kyle Dubas is all in. But, I don't think he's returning to Minnesota. Things kind of fell apart there. And Kyle Dubas hasn't ruled out signing UFAs to long-term contracts, which would be a little bit surprising based on where the team is right now. But he prefers to acquire RFAs through trades rather than offer sheet. And this is an RFA right here who's one of the best young talents in the league. So how do you feel about Marco Rossi potentially becoming a Pittsburgh Penguin, and the player himself? Could he help this team? Because I think this is a no-brainer.
Well, I mean, looking from the Minnesota side, it does make sense. He was a 60-point player, playing in the top six, demoted to the fourth line in the middle of the playoffs, still putting up reasonable points. I believe 2 goals and 1 assist on the fourth line. A smaller frame, and we know the Wild want to get bigger down the middle, but this would be perfect for the Penguins. A young center that's getting into his own, 60 points in, I believe, back-to-back seasons, 20 goals. This guy fits the time frame and kind of accelerates it as well. You bring in a guy that can put up the points, still young. If you want to offer sheet him, a $7 million contract for 7 years would cost you a first and a third round pick. Now, yes, moving out your own first this year wouldn't be the best, but I do think Dubas needs to hammer down a trade to get Rossi to come in. As I said, still young, still time to grow, and someone that can kind of take over that second line. See if you want to move Malkin more to a winger, move him down the lineup. I think you can get a strong center core with Crosby, Malkin, and him going into next season.
I think that they should even consider trading their first round pick this year for Marco Rossi. I have to be honest, because that pick could turn into something pretty good, but a lot of people are considering this a weaker draft beyond the top 5. And Marco Rossi is a guy who can make a difference right now. And if you take a look at his stats and what he did last season, he played all 82 games. He's only going to be 24. He's still very young, and he had 60 points in 82 games. He was the Wild's second line center for a while there, and then, of course, dropped down to the fourth line in the playoffs. I don't think it had anything to do with him as a player, what he brings to the table. It had everything to do with, politics and the way that the team was going. And I just don't understand why they don't believe in this player, because he is such a skilled and good player. So we'll see what happens in terms of, Minnesota and their plan to keep him. But I don't think that that's going to happen. I think he will be traded this offseason, and I think Pittsburgh should be all over it. Like you said, whether it's a trade or an offer sheet, a first round pick for a 7x7, that's not bad. And when you look at some comparables that we can look at across the league, Coronado, who scored 25 plus goals for the Calgary Flames, got a contract of $6.5 million. So he's going to get a significant raise. He's on his ELC right now, so obviously he's not going to make around $1 million. He's going to get a significant raise. But again, what do you think that he, 7x7 worth it for Marco Rossi? It brings him to, 31 years old, $7 million. The cap's going up significantly season after season. This is a guy who can come in and play second line center for you. We're going to get into his second, who might go the other way, but, he can play second line center for you. I think that would be a no-brainer at that price. I mean, he's probably going to be asking for even more.
I mean, with the cap projections, I believe they have him projected to get a 2-year deal at 4.5 or a 7x7. And honestly, a 7x7 is worth the risk. As we said, a 23-year-old that scored 20 goals, I believe back-to-back seasons, playing all 82 games, putting up 60 points, and he's 23. This is the perfect fit, and I do believe Dubas has a ground. Like you said, we're going to touch on the players, but we know the Wild want to continue to compete. They want to get better. You could probably attach some veterans to this trade to even accelerate just Minnesota side and get a young piece back.
Absolutely. And when you look at the Pittsburgh Penguins lineup, a lot of people are like, who would you take off or out of this lineup to, for it to go the other way? And I saw a lot of chatter about Evgeni Malkin, and there was Evgeni Malkin in this article. They did mention him later on in the article that, obviously you don't want to, maybe you don't want to trade Brian Rust, of course. I don't think he's going anywhere, right? I don't even think that's an option at this point. Maybe Rickard Rakell, who just had a career year for himself, but Evgeni Malkin is expected to retire at the end of next season. So would that even be a smart trade for the Minnesota Wild, where, you're trading for a guy who's going to retire next season? Maybe you just want to keep Malkin, for retirement with the Pittsburgh Penguins. But if you can get a guy like Marco Rossi for Evgeni Malkin, you certainly, at least go look into it. That's for sure. But a lot of comparables, even to Daniel Briere. I mean, this is a guy who's ready to pop off, I think, in the right situation with the right team. I think Pittsburgh is a good spot for him. Fans are chiming in on this as well, that the Pittsburgh Penguins should absolutely target Marco Rossi this offseason, whether that's a trade or an offer sheet with him being an RFA. Again, that's the big thing too. He's an RFA, so there is team control, right? You can kind of get him in on a contract that you would like. And I think that, with the change of scenery, he might be more open to contract negotiations as well. So, I would trade a first-round pick, I think, for Marco Rossi. I don't know how you feel about that specifically, Mark. But again, he's not happy in Minnesota. He was played on the fourth line in the playoffs. He thinks he's a top six guy. I think he's a top six guy, especially in the right situation. And Minnesota Wild fans are already saying goodbye to him. So would you trade this year's first-round pick for him? I think that, that is the topic of conversation right now. Malkin plus, right? And would you trade Malkin or Rickard Rakell plus a first-round pick for Marco Rossi, or just a first-round pick and maybe somebody else like another, AHL or something like that? How do you feel about that? And I think that's probably the way they should go.
I mean, if you can keep Malkin and Rakell, I'd say do it. Why not? Continue to retool this team. Still have some veterans around. Malkin gets to retire on the Penguins, but I do believe moving on from the pick is a good idea. Listen, it's going to be a top 15 pick. We understand this. We know there's going to be a decent player, but you're guaranteed a player that can play immediately in your top six, 23 years old. This guy can come out and score 60 points. When you put him on the Penguins team that might have more offense, better line mates, this could be the perfect situation for Rossi. And yes, if you want to offer sheet with the first and the third, that wouldn't be a bad idea either. I don't know. I think the big thing is you offer the first. You try not to shake up too much. If you can attach a bad contract, do it. But I doubt Minnesota does that. But I think you need to do whatever you can at this point just to bring him in. And Dubas needs to really start calling Bill Guerin.
Absolutely. I think he needs to pick up the phone and they need to start having a conversation, because it just makes sense to put him second line center behind Sidney Crosby, and you'll have him for the foreseeable future, right? We don't know what a contract would look like specifically, but that's a guy who can be a second line center in this league. He is one of the most skilled players I got to see live as well. So, I think that he's just ready to explode at the NHL level with the right situation, the right team, and playing in a position where he should be, honestly. He's not a fourth liner, right? And fourth liners play a certain role. So it fits the bill, and Kyle Dubas has said that he would prefer to acquire RFAs that, through a trade or offer sheet rather than, long-term UFAs and stuff like that. So we'll see how Kyle Dubas plans to rebuild this team, but we want to hear what you have to say in the comments about Marco Rossi becoming a Pittsburgh Penguin. I think it is a trade that they should look to make. They should make, absolutely. I think it's a no-brainer at this point, but let us know in the comments what you think, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything Pittsburgh Penguins.